In 1962, James Bond got his big screen debut with the movie Dr. No. The character of James Bond was created by author and ex-World War II British intelligence officer Ian Fleming. He was a heavy drinker and smoked up to 4 packs a day that led to him suffering from a heart attack in 1961 at the age of 53, which he never fully recovered from. At this point, Canadian film producer Harry Saltzman approached Fleming to purchase the film rights. Wanting to provide financial security for his family and son, he agreed to sell the rights to Saltzman for a large lump sum and a percentage of all future box office receipts. Even with the film rights, Saltzman was having issues finding investors to finance the films. At this point, another film producer, Albert Broccoli, was also looking to secure the film rights only to find that Saltzman had already purchased them. Broccoli tried to buy them from him, but Saltzman was only interested in a partnership in which they could both co-produce the series. Broccoli reluctantly agreed, and they created the production studio Everything or Nothing, or Eon. After searching around, United Artists agreed to finance a Bond movie and gave Eon $1 million for the first title. Saltzman and Broccoli wanted to make Thunderball the first movie since it was the latest novel to be released. However, Fleming was tied up in a court battle over incorporating elements from the screenplay into his novel. Saltzman and Broccoli did not want to get involved with a court case, so they looked to his other novels. With a limited budget of only $1 million, they decided on Dr. No since the story only had one exotic location and one major set piece. We start the movie off with the traditional gun barrel scene, where we get a POV of a bullet being assassinated by Bond, here played by stunt coordinator Bob Simmons. All Bond movies have their own unique theme song, so let's have a sample of what Dr. No has in store for us. No, that's just the classic James Bond theme. What's next? No, that's not right either, but at least we have the dancing people this time. Alright, what about our third attempt?
3 blind mice in a row, 3 blind mice.
Yes, 3 Blind Mice, a classic favorite of toddlers everywhere. At least these 3 blind men lead us into our prologue. The 3 blind men go on to assassinate a British operative, Strangway, who likes to speak while covering up his mouth.
Order round on my chip, will you, Professor?
So it's a good thing that he dies early on. Then the 3 blind men go to Strangway's office, kill his secretary with bad editing, and get their hands onto the title of the movie, Dr. No. At the ultra-high-tech listening post in London, they express some concern over their missing operatives in Jamaica and decide to call in MI6. First, we get introduced to the back of James Bond's head, and then we get formally introduced to him.
Trench. Sylvia Trench.
Wait, that's not right. Let's try it again.
Bond. James Bond.
This classic James Bond line was ad-libbed by Sean Connery when he was just imitating the cadence of Sylvia Trench. After some flirting and collecting his salary, he heads into the office to do the next thing he does best, flirt again with Moneypenny.
You never take me to dinner, period.
I would, you know. Only M would have me court-martialed for illegal use of government property.
Ew. He then meets with his boss, M, to get this movie's exposition dump. I mean, mission briefing.
Massive interference with their Cape Canaveral rockets. They think it comes from the Jamaica area.
But before Bond can head over to Jamaica, he needs to get his gadgets from Q. And this version's Q only offers Bond his classic Walther PPK and nothing else. The classic Q, played by Desmond Llewellyn, will make his debut in the next movie. Bond heads home to pack and finds that Miss Trench has already beaten him to his dress shirt. But despite being an international super spy, he doesn't question as to how this woman he just met this evening broke into his house. Bond finally makes it to Jamaica, and the first thing he does is try to steal these flight attendants' taxi. After confirming that this is not the chauffeur he was looking for, he decides to go with them anyways to see how this plays out. This leads to one of the most lackluster of car chases in the Bond franchise.
Try and lose them.
A whole 55 miles per hour, huh? They make their getaway by going down a dirt road where the dust instantly disappears. Then Bond starts to interrogate his driver, and with just one throw and a punch, they decide to have a smoke break. That's not how you smoke a cigarette. Oh, okay. I like how Bond just casually drops his dead body. Bond heads over to his local contact, deposits his dead body, gets a list of primary suspects, and then does the thing that a spy is supposed to do, investigate and gather information. He makes a stop at his hotel room and secures it like I learned to do when I was 8 years old. Yeah, no one's going to notice the powder all over your briefcase. And as you could tell from the multiple takes, your spit is going to do a great job of holding your hair there for a long time. He follows up on a lead and meets with Quarrel, the man who went fishing with Strangway. He will be this movie's red shirt, and not just because he's already wearing a red shirt.
Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious.
A quick fight later, and Bond meets his American counterpart, Felix Leiter. Felix will be a recurring character whenever the Americans are involved. They exchange more information. This guy here is enjoying his dancing way too much. They catch one of Dr. No's operatives. She breaks one of her flash bulbs and cuts Quarrel's face, which instantly heals, and we never see his face wounds again. Bond then follows up with Professor Dent, who loses his cool and heads over to meet his boss, Dr. No. He gets put in the corner and has to take a timeout. Then he's given the most effective form of assassination, a poisonous wild animal. Bond heads back to his room, where the woman working the front desk totally checks out his ass. That room door lets in way too much light at night. He checks on his work, and that hair totally fell off because someone came in. He checks on his briefcase and didn't notice that everything on the table is now reversed. Now it's time for a drink. He becomes suspicious of the bottle, so he takes out a new bottle, but wasn't concerned at all by the ice cubes that were out in the open. As everyone knows, ice neutralizes all forms of poison. Ice doesn't actually neutralize poison, and don't try this. While in bed, Rosie the Tarantula can't resist Bond's charm and comes in for a kiss. Now, Sean Connery was very afraid of spiders and would only do this with a piece of glass between them. But since this looked so bad, stunt coordinator Bob Simmons stood in for all the close-ups. He would go on to describe this scene as the scariest stunt he ever did. Then, Connery takes out all his fear on the spider. The next day, he collects a package from Q. Here's our one and only Q gadget for this movie. A normal, huge, 60s Geiger counter. They check some rocks and decide to head to Crab Key. But before he could head out, he needs to follow up on a series of riveting directions for a booty call.
You leave the Port Royal Road out of Kingston, then along the Windward Road, until you get to the cement factory. Then you turn left. Follow the road up the hill, down the other side, and 2 miles further on the left, Magenta Drive 239.
We get a better car chase this time, but watching someone trying to outrun a projection doesn't have as big of a punch as the real deal. Now, I haven't shown her yet, but Bond is on his way to meet Miss Taro, a Chinese character. She is played by Zena Marshall, a white British woman. Oh, the 60s. Trying to use Asian makeup over casting an actual Chinese woman. Even though he knows she's involved in his latest attempted murder, Bond doesn't pass up a chance to pump someone for information. He calls for her to get picked up by his friends and then prepares for a stakeout. Couple of drinks for me. A few pillows under the blanket. Cards to pass the time. And a silencer on not the Walther PPK. The PPK they were using in the production was not threaded for a silencer. They had to use an FN Browning 1910. I accused the professor of killing the pillows in the bedroom with a gun. With another Bond quip.
It's a Smith & Wesson. And you've had your 6.
He takes out the professor. Bond and Quarrel head over to Crab Key. Upon arrival, a certain trend starts to appear between these two. I didn't add the music in editing. That's how they wanted to portray him. After getting a great night's sleep on the beach, we get introduced to Honey Rider, in one of the most well-known scenes from the Connery era. By that, I mean the one and only time we get to hear James Bond sing.
Underneath the mango tree, my honey and...
They immediately get spotted by a patrol boat. They open fire and the bullets ricochet off the sand as if it were metal. Now this henchman has to be either the most incompetent or the smartest.
You coming out? All right, then. We'll be back. We'll be back with the dogs.
I think he knows that he is up against someone with plot armor. So he plays the part of the concerned henchman and gets the hell out of there. After the henchmen leave, we get two of the worst parts of this movie. First is this whole subplot of a dragon. Both Honey and Coral discuss the presence of a dragon on the island. And then we get this little nugget.
Fetch my shoes.
I know this was filmed in 1962, but let's try to do better.
I'm sorry.
They head into the interior of the island and hide from some more henchmen using cartoon logic. Even though they're being chased, they have time to take a bath, and then Coral finds dragon tracks. This doesn't make any sense. They see tire tracks and their first thought is, oh, it's a dragon. Earlier in the movie, Coral is shown driving a car, and Honey mentions selling shells in Miami, where they have cars. Anyway, lucky for us, the next scene reveals the dragon, and it's just an armored car with a flamethrower. They decide to attack it, and Red Shirt Coral gets to be the first Bond sacrifice of the franchise. They really did him dirty because as soon as he dies, the fight stops and they're captured. They are taken to decontamination. Put a little soap everywhere. Then I'm just going to brush them once on each side. Yeah, that's a job well done. After a more thorough scrubbing, they check into their hotel? I guess not all supervillains are that bad. No, the coffee was drugged. Blarg. They get tucked into bed, change, and then we get to see Dr. No's lair.
It set me up with this gorgeous lair. Do you have a lair? I have a lair.
Finally, with only 22 minutes left in the movie, we finally get to see the big bad of the movie, Dr. No, whose first job is to explain why the fishes in the tank are so big. What had happened was that only the day before filming these scenes, they found stock footage of fish to display on the glass. It ended up being only extreme close-ups, so they added in the line about the glass being convex. They also snuck in this dated Easter egg. Bond notices this painting of Duke of Wellington, painted by Francisco de Goya. The actual painting was stolen a year before this movie was released, but was recovered in 1965. Dr. No first explains his heritage. He is played by Joseph Wiseman, a white French-Canadian, who had extra Asian makeup added to make him look half Chinese. The good doctor goes on to explain that he stole $10 million from a Chinese crime syndicate and used it to finance this lair. I guess $10 million went a whole lot further 60 years ago. Honey gets taken away to unfortunately amuse the guards. Ew. In typical Bond fashion, the villain explains too much of his organization. They take Bond away for a beating and revoke his hotel privileges. After finding out that electricity is spicy, he makes his way into the air ducts. I mean, water pipes? I don't know how these air ducts work with water randomly pumping through. Bond finally makes his way out and finds a disguise that fits him on the first person he sees. And with the disguise on, he enters the control room. When Stanley Kubrick watched this movie, he was so impressed with this set that he hired the set designer Ken Adams to be the production designer on Dr. Strangelove. I think that man needs to vent his suit badly. We get to see some more cutting-edge computers. I think this entire control center could easily fit on someone's phone today. Here, Dr. No is trying to operate an atomic-powered radio station to topple a NASA Mercury rocket. I wonder what would happen if I put this into the danger zone. Quick, someone is causing the reactor to overload. What should I do? Everyone decides to run away, and only Dr. No goes to stop it. Not enough passion out of those henchmen. They end up fighting on the reactor. Even if you survive the fight, I don't think you're going to survive being that close to an overloading reactor. Why didn't I make my mechanical hands have better grip? Bond quickly finds Honey. They steal the boat of people evacuating. You don't get to survive with me. Then the miniature of the powerful radio dish and docks explode. The movie ends with Felix rescuing their stranded boat, to only have Bond to strand himself again to finally sleep with Honey. So what are these guys supposed to do now? Rescue them before or after they're done sleeping with each other? Apparently, people who work at the CIA cannot tell time. Before Bond went to Crab Key, Felix tells him that the rocket launches in 48 hours. If Bond doesn't come back in 12 hours, Felix is supposed to storm the island with Marines. Bond spends 2 nights on the island and stops Dr. No as the launch is happening. Felix doesn't show up until after the 48 hours are up. On a final note, Saltzman and Broccoli were originally considering having the character of Dr. No portrayed by a chimp. Now this is 1962, so we're not going to get Caesar from Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and we're not going to get the makeup of the original Planet of the Apes because of budget problems. At best, we would have got a talking monkey, similar to Mr. Ed. All in all, this is an alright Bond movie. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. Just in the middle. It was the first movie and was made with only a budget of $1 million. So at times, it does feel like a well-done B movie. It has 60s racism and sexism, while the pacing of the movie can be quite slow during the first half. If you're interested in starting to watch some Bond movies, don't start with this one. Start with any of the other Connery Bond movies from the 60s and come back to this one at the end. You don't have to watch them in order, since there isn't much of a connecting story other than the fact that Spectre exists. Thank you for watching my first episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and Bond will return with From Russia with Love.